Welcome to the game line. There's nothing quite like the Millennium Stadium being set ablaze with great rugby played at high speeds. Wales vs Scotland was a nail-biter and the very definition of a game of two halves. We'll be looking at how Scotland managed to blaze ahead in the first half and what each team's idea was from the get-go. Then we'll look at how Wales very nearly pulled off one of the all-time great comebacks in rugby. Scotland had two main ideas in the match. They wanted to use their great distributors to move the ball side to side with speed and accuracy. But perhaps the biggest reason for their early dominance was the fact that they targeted Wales in certain inexperienced positions, specifically in the kicking game and outside defence. Scotland's attack is mainly built around Finn Russell, who is an absolute wizard at finding and putting attackers in space. And in this game, he managed to ignite a lot of potent attacks in the first half that gave Scotland a lot of momentum. In particular, Scotland used a lot of switch attacks with Russell as the first receiver, and it put Wales' defence under a lot of pressure. Essentially, Scotland would line up their pod with Russell on one side of the pitch and the backline on the other side. Of course, Wales' approach was to target Russell before he could even get the attack going. Finn would then switch the point of attack by folding to the opposite side to slot in the backline to target an unprepared Welsh defence. This was a pain for Wales on multiple occasions. Another important point to Scotland's attack was their distribution. They played with a lot of width that was ignited by, yet again, Finn Russell. This put a lot of pressure on Wales' defence, particularly when they were folding. This didn't necessarily create a lot of gaps in their defence, but it did allow Scotland to have a lot of dominant carries at times, which put them under even more pressure. Tuipulotu in particularly had a great day in the midfield. When Wales did manage to set their lines, they were very aggressive in their line speed towards the first pod. It's clear that they didn't want Scotland to get a lot of momentum in the first place, and to be fair, it did work at times. But Scotland was one step ahead of them here as well. They put in a lot of attacking cross kicks to circumnavigate this rushed defensive system. This had a great effect on multiple occasions, as it meant that their attacks would have even more width on the following phases. This leads me to the second main idea that Scotland had, which was to target Wales' inexperience. They made these crossfield kicks towards Rio Dyer on the left wing instead of Josh Adams on the right, where it was more likely that the ball would be covered properly. Adams has over 50 caps for Wales, while Dyer only has 14. This was a general trend not just in these attacking kicks for Scotland. The main open play kickers in a team is the back three and the fly-off. These four players cover 90% of most teams' kicking games, and they are responsible for defending as well as initiating kicks. Scotland saw this as a great opportunity to exploit, as Costello, Winnett and Dyer are all very inexperienced players for Wales. Let's take this period of play that happened in the 20th minute as an example. Scotland just won a free kick at the scrum, and Russell puts pressure on Winnett by kicking it to him directly with strong chases. Winnett then kicks the ball back to Russell. Russell then puts in a good kick between Winnett and Costello. There seems to be a bit of miscommunication between them because both position themselves ineffectively close to the ball. Winnett takes the ball and then kicks it back to Russell again. However, this time he chases his own ball. This was clearly a misunderstanding in the backfield, as Adams signals to him to stay back so that he and Costello can cover the backfield. Winnett doesn't see this, and it leaves Costello alone, trying to cover the entirety of the backfield. This gives Russell the perfect opportunity to get a 50-22, which he of course takes. To make matters worse, Wales then gets a penalty against them for throwing the ball into the crowd. Scotland's kicking was better overall for the entirety of the first half, and it wasn't helped by Wales' approach to the beginning of the game as well. Wales' approach was to play with more pressure on Scotland. They made plenty of pressure-based kicks that tested Scotland's back three in the air. To be fair to them, it did kind of work. There were multiple occasions when Scotland couldn't take the ball cleanly. The only problem was that Wales couldn't capitalise on these mistakes. Another area where Scotland managed to dominate was in their defence. They shut down Wales in two main areas. The first was that Wales kept attacking quite narrow in the first half. This was probably as a way to keep pressure on Scotland by trying to increase their phase count and to prevent Scotland from launching strong counter-attacks in case of a turnover. This allowed Scotland to make the breakdown quite messy with strong counter-rucking pressure. One of Scotland's defensive philosophies is to exert a lot of pressure at the ruck, not necessarily with trying to steal the ball, but rather to counter-ruck. This slowed down Wales's ball considerably. The second was how they managed to shut down Wales's strike moves. Wales put a lot of emphasis on their attacks from the set piece, specifically in the middle of the field. They consistently managed to make meters or even to break the line in this area. Instead of shooting up aggressively, Scotland prioritized getting more defenders in the midfield to prevent a line break. The extra time allowed more cover defenders to reinforce the defensive line. All these factors played a massive role in Scotland's dominant first-half lead of 20, but it was ultimately a 1-point game. So, what changed in the second half? Well, quite a bit, but I'd like to highlight 3 things. The second half started off well for Scotland with another try, but it was all downhill from then on. Probably, the biggest factor was Scotland's discipline. They ended the game with a massive 16 penalties against them, while Wales only had 4. These penalties put Wales in great positions throughout the second half, while simultaneously taking away large amounts of momentum from Scotland. A lot of these penalties happened at the breakdown, because Scotland's defence was under so much pressure, and they had to apply a lot of pressure at the breakdown out of necessity. Why was their defence under so much strain? This leads to the second reason for the comeback, which is that Wales changed their approach on attack. They attacked with way more width and depth than in the first half, and it really made a huge difference. I don't know if Gatland encouraged them to try and be more experimental in their attack, but whatever he said paid off. They attacked wider in both open play and in their strike moves. In open play, Scotland's defence couldn't cover Wales's distribution properly, probably because they didn't expect such wide attacking structures and because Wales had very good continuity and speed. And in their strike moves, instead of crashing in the middle of the field, they decided to position themselves deeper, which gave them more time on the ball to get it to the sides of the pitch. Scotland's defence is a bit more passive in nature. As I mentioned before, Scotland chooses to counter-ruck instead of jackling on the ground. They prefer to keep more defenders on their feet for the defensive line, instead of competing for turnovers. This meant that Wales's breakdown was more secure, and it led to a lot of good continuity for them, with high face counts. This constant defending on the back foot no doubt also had a big effect on Scotland's fitness as the match went on. The last area where Wales got the edge was in the set piece, specifically the scrum. Both Scotland and Wales had subpar lineouts, with 70% and 67% success rates respectively. The scrum was different, however. Scotland only had a 44% scrum success rate, while Wales had a 75% success rate. The scrum is such a pivotal part of the game, as it gives you the absolute best attacking platform in the sport apart from good turnovers. Getting a penalty is also hugely beneficial, as it usually means getting a great kicking angle for a line-out. This allowed for big momentum swings in favour of Wales as the match went on. I also thought that there were some other areas that influenced the match quite a bit. One of them was that Wales' breakdown work was also pretty good, even in the first half. Their jacklers made some crucial turnovers at various points during the match. Wales' maul was also really good, particularly towards the end of the match. They managed to score 2 tries from it, and it also gave them some great attacking platforms as well. Overall, this was a really enjoyable game from a neutral's point of view. If you're a Wales fan, then you might actually be pleasantly surprised at the close scoreline. If you're a Scotland fan though, well, please send my condolences to your heart. If you like this video, then you can also watch my Ireland vs France analysis. And if you'd like to see more tactical analyses in the future, then please consider liking and subscribing. See you next time.